Hi dear friends, welcome in our new Daoland healthcare video. We are going to talk about several things today, and as always we have a central theme. We are going to go to our central theme, and this central theme today will be Zhang Sanfeng. Zhang Sanfeng is a very important person for Wudang Taoism. Maybe the most important in some ways, and I am going to talk about the translation that I have presented, or that I'm going to present. Anyway, it's ready and it is part of our translation project, and you can sign up for that if you want. If you are a Wudang player, then you definitely have to have this translation, because there is no Taijiquan without the thoughts of there is no Wudang Taijiquan without the thoughts of Zhang Sanfeng. Okay, I am right now in the guide shifu. That is our translation program. You can sign up for this program and you can read everything that's being translated. I am holding out a little bit for when you are coming, to make sure that over time you get more and more information, you really get into the resources that we have. I'm thinking about adding some of the articles about translation and transculturalism to it that I've also used for the Daoist medicine program, to help people make that cultural bridge between Chinese culture and Western culture, because especially for Taoism, Daoist literature is well, disorderly sometimes, very poetic, and it is very lovely and dreamlike sometimes. So at times it is very difficult to understand, and you really need some support sometimes. I make the translations, I do not comment on them yet. I am planning to make videos about the different video contents to make sure that you have some form of explanation with everything over time. But for now, I first need more support for the translation project as a whole, because it's going to take me 10 years to translate everything that I need to translate. I'm now just turning 60 this year. That's why I chose this year to start this. And the coming 10 years, I think this project is growing. Right now, I have something like 60-70 pages translated, many chapters from many different kind of authors, rituals and so on, in which I also have to provide instructions on how to perform these rituals, and that is part of the Daoist studies, of course, Taoism studies, that we are also setting up, and that I so far have left fallow a little bit, but for which I am starting to provide also a background to start with, to go through this whole trajectory, similar like what I learned from my teacher Liu and what I learned in the Wudang Mountains, and how to combine these things to create a formidable kind of Taoist that you see in movies, but also that are real helpful contributions to society, and they're not focusing on the religious fanaticism, but on actually doing something for the world. What is called in Taoism Shanshan means real hermits, scholar warriors, and that's what we're going to be, Sishan, scholar warriors. Oh, I wanted to put it off, but there's no need for that, because I already opened the app on the SAM card program for this, and you'll find the link also in the YouTube version of this and on the Patreon version of this video. What I wanted to talk with you about specifically is give you an introduction in the teachings and the ideas of Zhang Sanfeng, especially because Wudang people, anybody who practices Wudang Taijiquan, they need some guidelines about that. Otherwise they get stuck on their Taijiquan part and they become like Yang style or Chen style and anything like that, and they get into it only for the money or the power or the fighting or something like this. Well, you can see in the teachings from Zhang Sanfeng that Taijiquan as a martial art, it is helpful to develop yourself as a martial warrior, but it is not required. It's primarily considered to be a idea for healthcare because of the complexity of Taijiquan, and you don't need a long form, you just need 13 moves for that. So in our healthcare program we are developing right now, and we are starting a course very soon. You can sign up for that. I will give you a link to that too, so that we can provide you with class dates when we are going to work on that. You'll have to learn your form. We have weekly classes also for that, where you can work on your form, and from there you can start going further. Of course, there's a lot of Neidan involved in the ongoing classes of our bachelor and our master program, which is freely accessible on our Friday classes. Okay, so let's go to Zhang Sanfeng and some of his ideas, because there are different kind of chapters in Zhang Sanfeng, and we talk actually about Taiji Neidan Jing. I'm also busy with translating other texts about the experiences in the Neidan process. Zhang Sanfeng is a Dao master. You have to understand that. I'm going to translate also some material about Dao to provide you with more insight in how it actually works and how it relates to Yangshen, Neidan, and so forth and so forth. When I look at the first chapter, this chapter is called the preamble to the heavens, and in this text, Zhang Sanfeng says that the Shen is the mouth of heaven. That means that if you are a Shen, you speak in the name of heaven. When you do yijing studies, that's a very important part. At the moment when you do yijing studies, you learn to understand how to direct yourself towards heaven, and although many yijing students, they use it only for oracular use, it is primarily to become aware of the will of heaven, and as a result of that become a vessel for the execution of the will of heaven. And that is the main goal for Daoists. So when you practice Taijiquan, also the point is to help yourself to become a vessel for the will of heaven and to impregnate the earth and humanity and nature as a whole with that same will of heaven, by being in accord with Tao. So the will of heaven and being in accord with Tao, this is basically the same. So if you feel like you're in accord with Tao, according to Zhang Sanfeng, but you are not executing the will of heaven, which is very difficult to understand, then at that moment, basically, you live in a fantasy world. That's what is very important. He says in a reaction on that also that foolishness is not a saintly thing. So if you act foolish, or if you are having foolish feelings or thoughts at the same time, that's very important. So your focus and your dedication to doing good in the world is very important. When you become a Daoist, you make an oath, and one of the things that you swear to do is to take care of the weak. That means that the weak, who also very often need education, they are your primary concern. The rich, they can manage themselves. They can go to hell whenever they want, because the rich are, in a way, you can say, capable of buying the most expensive medicine to keep them alive. They can freeze themselves, whatever. If they are going on a Daoist path, then at that moment they will share their wealth automatically with everybody that they can share it with, to make sure that everybody is more or less on the level. So in that sense, Taoism has pretty much egalitarian ideas about wealth, and somebody who charges a lot for classes, therefore also, if that is not being pumped back into the community one way or the other, is therefore also not a very good Taoist. So this is something that Zhang Sanfeng makes really very clear already in his first chapter. He says what you have to develop is what is called Anang, that is the dark ability, that is the capacity to be able to speak to heaven. It means it's a skill. Yeah, so this is very important. One moment. Also, what he says is that the God Emperor, that means that the leader of the country has a moral responsibility to dedicate himself fully to the well-being of all the beings in his country, and as a result of that, anything that refers to his personal well-being, wealth, or anything like that is an affront to the will of heaven. That means that, servitude, Dang, is the main concept of Wudang, disciplinary servitude. This is what he points out. I must remind you, Zhang Sanfeng did not start Wudang Taoism or anything like that. It's his students who started this tradition of teaching and were the founders of the different schools of Wudang, of which the Xuanwu school at this moment still is the main esoteric school. people by itself, what he suggests is that people by itself, they are basically deaf for the will of heaven, they are deaf for the Tao and so on. And what, as a leader, any leader, if you're a Shen or if you are an emperor, anything like that, because as a Daoist you are a replacement emperor, and you want to, as a result of that, inspire the deaf. You want to make sure that people who are blind for the Tao, that they get to know it, and that they also become invigorated in trying to achieve Tao within themselves, so that they also can become a vessel for the will of heaven. This has to lead eventually, according to Taoism, to heaven on earth, of course, because if the will of heaven is being realized, all people are, well, sort of a representation of Tao, and everything then would go appropriate. What Zhang Sanfeng points out in the same first chapter is that what we are looking for is a universal salvation for everybody. And if people have any form of selfishness, they are at that moment taking away from that universal salvation. So seeking the cooperation of everybody to work for the good of everybody, that is a very important part. To understand what is the good of everybody, you cannot just listen to your local leaders, and you cannot listen to your national leaders or anything like that. You cannot listen to philosophers. You cannot even just listen to me. You really have to practice and to get to the point. And you have to learn to discern what is real and what is false. Because if everybody is learning something different, then still you get into conflict because nobody agrees with each other, or everybody just shuts up, and then you get the terror of nobody really knowing what anybody else thinks or says. So this is also not right. We really need cooperation with each other, and then in that sense, the practice of the heart in relationship to your tongue, that is very important. So it means that what you are saying has to always speak Tao, in the sense that the heart's desire or the heart's commitment has to be in your actions and has to be in your speech, so that you do not say nonsense things, or you make you create fear or anger in people as a result of what you are saying and doing. The root of it is blunt, and that is your heart. Your heart is blunt in the sense that it cannot harm really things. But because there's all kinds of people in the world, it is important, according to Zhang Sanfeng, to listen to the different chapters. And there are many chapters in this thing. When I look at the different chapters as a whole, you can say that in the Zhang Sanfeng unit at this moment there are 20 chapters just from the Taiji Neidan Jing. I think I have by accident skipped one or two. I'm still trying to sort it out to make sure that that is being corrected. But this in itself already creates so many incredible ideas. Like for instance, this chapter on obscenity, there's chapters like this. There's chapters on orthodoxy, there is chapters on Confucianism, there's chapters on the purpose of meditation, and he really shows the blending between Buddhism and Taoism here. And he talks about the dark yin, mysterious yin, and he talks about the 5 virtues, about filial piety. He talks about obscenity, about giving, about profit and loss, superiority, all kind of chapters and subjects that are important to people in daily life. And let's talk about this one, because we are here on the Shamong, on the internet, and as a result of that we are continuously being provoked to open ourselves up to novelty. And I will read a little bit about this chapter. Between heaven and earth there are people who are most spiritual and noble, people who are the busiest and the fastest. It's a pity that many people are drowning in fame, wealth and honor, in love, lust and affection. Wolves are endlessly greedy, so why do moths rush? Once the deadline is approaching, how regretful are they now? The deadline, of course, is death line also at the same time. He talks deadline, but you can read it as death line. How regretful they are. But then, if they are willing to die, they will die. So if you are not doing anything to stop dying, you will die. You don't have to die, but you will die. If you do Neidan practice, you do the right kind of things in accord with Tao, then the idea is, of course, that you become an immortal. who truly trusts that there is prescription for cultivation of immortality, who realizes the wonderful golden Ling elixir. It is a pity. And so this is one of the main concerns. And I have been teaching my students for many years about Ling meditation, and you can find on my Patreon, you can find free classes in a Qigong base, in a Qigong primer. You also find this material about how to do Ling meditation. We have every Christmas, we have a international Ling class. There's a free class on, I think, Facebook or YouTube or something like this, which is then also later on put into the Facebook group that you can sign up for, and you can talk about that, and we can discuss all kinds of things. So look up also this book. There will also be a link below in this page. So I think with this I already told you a lot about this material and why this is a very important translation. I look forward to see your support. I also look forward to see you in the classes, or if you are willing to come to my clinic, or if you want me to come to your location to do some clinical work, then I'll be very happy to. I can give you classes, I can make you smile, I can make you cry, whatever you want. When I popped off, then you go gave me just a little bit of